Today's seminar is going to be really about thinking about the situation that we are faced in the world right now, because we all want to live happy lives. Everybody wants to be happy. There's not a person in the world that doesn't want to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. But unfortunately, sometimes when people seek their own happiness, if their mind or understanding or perspective on life is wrong, they're willing to create suffering on others to try to bring about their own happiness. So what's required in the world today is a great awakening of the truth, which is we're going to talk about today. So first of all, let's just think about our current situation here on Earth. What is the situation we're living with at the moment? What is creating the problems? Well, first of all, we have a lot of wars going on. We have Russia, the Ukraine war, the Israel-Iran war. There's lots of other little skirmishes and wars going on in different places as well. Now, we also have China threatening Taiwan and other countries. It brings a lot of problems and danger. If China decided to take Taiwan, then of course that would create a huge problem for the world. Then there's economic uncertainty. There's a possible financial collapse. Many people are worried about the financial situation in the world. Countries in so much debt. The debt in America is trillions and trillions of dollars. And at the moment, the world financial system is based on the American dollar. And so if that collapses, that will create a huge problem in the world. There's a strong belief in science and materialism in the world today. People believe if you can't prove it in science, then it doesn't exist. It's not true. Now, science hasn't been around very long. And religion itself has been around thousands and thousands of years. But people have lost their faith in religion, and they're more focused on science and materialism, what they can see, what they can touch, what they can own. So, and the pleasures of the food, the nice clothes, the entertainment that's available through computers and TVs and phones. So, yeah, the science and materialism is also strongly there. We had COVID, but there's also the possibility of another virus. So that's also another situation that worries many people in the world today. Then there's people wanting to rely on governments. People, for instance, you hear a lot of this, say, for instance, in America, where people went to university and now they want the government to give them back the money, pay their student loans. So that might sound nice, the idea that, the government should pay all the student loans, so it's all free. But actually, there's actually a lot of strength of character that's built when a person wants to study hard and do something and go to university, and then they know they have a debt that they're going to have to pay back later. Because for one thing that happens is they think, well, I have to make sure that whatever I study is going to be useful in society. If I'm going to have to pay the money back, I'm going to need to be able to do something to earn an income to be able to pay the money back. If people just feel like, the government will pay for all, I can go and study whatever I want, even if it's actually of no use to society, but it's fun for me, I can go and study this and the government will pay for my fees. It doesn't benefit the person, it doesn't benefit society, and in the end, it just creates a huge debt that other people in society will have to pay. And the final one here I've got here is AI, or artificial intelligence. This is an area in the world that's really new, but growing quickly. There's a possibility, Master Okawa spoke about this, that within the next 5 years to 10 years, 90% of the work being done in the world today could be done by AI. Can you imagine what that would mean? If 90% of the people are out of work because AI is doing all the work. So today, one of the things we're going to talk about is also the meaning of work. What is the essence of work and why work is important for humans. So that's the current situation we're in. These are the problems. So let's think about the cause of the current situation, because Buddhism is always about cause and effect. If this is the situation we're in now, we've got there for a reason. The reason the world is in so much turmoil is there's an underlying reason. Well, the starting point of it all is humankind's wrong perspective of life. If we have the wrong perspective of life or viewpoint of life, the very starting point is wrong. So of course, what follows on from that is going to be wrong. And so because of this wrong perspective of life, the society is now full of fear, selfishness, greed, lack of empathy, bad leadership, and no clear concept of an ideal future. That's really where we're at because of the wrong way of thinking, because of materialistic way of thinking, people thinking, I just have to get out of life whatever I can get out of it. That's what's most important. Because that is the perspective, then these are the things that we have. And really, the no clear concept of an ideal future is really closely connected to bad leadership. If we don't have leaders that have got an enlightened way of thinking, that have got a wrong perspective, that wrong perspective goes out into the communities, it goes into the people, it goes into the education system, and then naturally that spreads. So Really, the bad leadership and the no clear concept of an ideal future is really a big problem. If we have an ideal future, if we have a concept of an ideal future and everybody's taught about that ideal and everyone has a clear picture of the ideal and how to get there, we can actually walk in that direction. But if we don't have that clear ideal, how can we build it? Master Okawa once spoke about in a book called Think Big, a building in Tokyo called Tokyo Tree, and it's the tallest building, I think, in Tokyo. But he said, he was talking about Think Big, and it was about how the only reason that building is that tall is because somebody imagined it to be that tall. Somebody had an idea to build that building that tall. If they had an idea to build it half that size, it would be half that size. So everything starts with a thought. So to build an ideal world and ideal communities, ideal societies, it starts with a thought. If we don't have that thought, then of course it's very it's messy. It's the situation we end up with now, with everybody just going out there and living the way they want to live and based on a wrong perspective. So therefore, we need to think about how to bring peace to earth. That's what today's seminar is all about. Well, as I just said a second ago, and I'll just go back to the very top of here, was humankind's wrong perspective of life. Okay, let's go back then, and we need to have a right perspective of life. And the right perspective of life starts with right faith. Okay, in today's world, faith sounds religious. So people say, oh, faith, I don't, they're a bit afraid of the word faith. But faith is really about a right perspective of life. If you believe in science is what you believe everything is true, that's your faith. Your faith is in science. So what is the faith that's going to help us to be able to head in the right direction? Well, the first thing is we have to believe that you and others are more than just a physical body and that we also have a soul. This is the starting point. If we don't believe that, then materialism will rule the world. If everybody believes the physical body is all there is because science can't prove that we have a soul, so therefore the soul doesn't exist. Science can't prove that there's a God, so therefore God doesn't exist. So if people are just going to believe in the science and the materialism, then that's the future. What we live in now will just get worse and worse. The starting point is to believe that I have a soul and others have a soul. Secondly, we have to believe that there's a spiritual world. We have to believe that this world isn't everything, that this world's just a temporary world we've come to. We have to believe that this world is a school for souls. We have to believe that I have a soul, that there is another world, and that I've come to this world as a school to learn something. And we have to believe that we have the mission of developing ourselves in a way that helps develop the world. These are the main 4 beliefs. That's it, 4 beliefs. These 4 beliefs will give us a perspective or a faith and it doesn't matter what God people believe in, doesn't matter what teachings they follow, but this needs to be the underlying faith or perspective. I'm a soul. Everybody has a soul. We're all spiritual beings. There's another world beyond this world, the spirit world, which is where I came from. I came to this world to learn something. This is a place for education. And that my development of myself in this world needs to lead to the betterment of the world. It's very simple. If you think about cause and effect, what will happen in the world if this was taught to kids from a young age? If this was the belief structure that was put into the world, everything would change. Everything would very easily change with this simple belief structure. So happy science teachings really are what the essence of that, because what I just said here, these last 4 points, okay, if I want to develop myself in a way that helps develop the world, it's nice to know, to be given some clues about how I can develop myself. What do I need to do to develop myself? What is developing myself? So the first thing here, Master Okawa spoke about in Happy Science Teachers is about exploration of the right mind. See, every one of us have a divine nature. Every one of us has a Buddha nature. So we have a false self and a true self. So when we go into exploration of the right mind, first of all, we look in there, we find the false self. The false self is based on delusion. That's the self that associates with everything as being material. Everything is, I am me, this body is me, that person, they're a good person because they're good looking, or that person's no good because they're no good looking. Just based on material stuff. This person's good because they're rich, because look how much stuff they have. This is a delusional way of thinking. This is seeing people from a materialistic perspective. But when we go discovery of the true self, we find the self that's one with God, one with Buddha. So this self, if you imagine a self that has the same attributes as God or Buddha, that is the light of Buddha itself within us, when we think about that, and when we think about exploration of the right mind, there can be no end to that exploration. Because the one that is one with God has the same attributes of God. It means the more I get to know myself and discover my true mind, the more I get to understand God. And God is fathomless. There is no end to the understanding God. So this is a journey for eternity. But this is our true self. And as people relate to their true self and discard their false self, then they develop themselves and they become more and more like the sun that just wants to shine and bring light and love and good energy to everybody and society around them. So I'd like to listen to a short excerpt from Master. It's from a lecture he gave called What is the Mind? Awakening to the Mind. And then here he's talking about what is the mind? Because here we talk about exploration of the right mind. So what is the mind? You know, this is the question we need to ask. If we're going to explore right mind, what is the mind? And just to give a little clue on that, Master Okawa teaches, sure, we have a physical body. And I said before, we all have a soul. But he said the core of the soul is the mind. Okay, this gives us a good clue about what is the mind. We have a physical body, we have a soul that's the same shape as our physical body, but at the core of our soul, we have a mind. So let's start to understand what is the mind.
I think we need to dig into the subject of the mind more. When you are asked, what is your mind? Can you answer that question? The first thing people think of is what is called the instinct. To a certain degree, animals and insects possess this too. What does the instinct cover? In any living entity, whether it be an insect, an animal, or a human being, the instinct will work to defend its life on this earth and protect what it thinks to be itself. Since the base of its decision-making is self-preservation, it will gladly welcome anything that will bring it pleasure, and it will try to avoid or lessen anything that will bring it tribulation and sorrow. This is called the pleasure-pain principle. You could consider this a primitive form of the mind. People like what will give them pleasure and avoid what will give them pain or sorrow, and they make their choices accordingly. This is how humans usually are. This is the beginnings of the mind. Humans feel this way instinctively, but it's also how they start to make choices. Based on the pleasure-pain principle, they begin to think of what they'll do or what they won't do. This is the beginning of thought. At this level, they are still not very different from insects and animals in this regard, because even insects and animals will choose what will bring them pleasure and avoid what they don't like. But there comes a time when these emotions collide with the opinions of others or with rules that they didn't know existed. Take crossing the road, for example. According to the pleasure-pain principle, crossing the road in a straight line is the shortest route and therefore the most pleasurable. But for someone driving a car, the most pleasurable thing to do is to drive straight ahead at the fastest speed possible. It would be highly unpleasant for you to have someone step into the road in front of you. It would be very unpleasant, especially if it were not just one person that did this, but one after another, people started crossing the road haphazardly and blocked your progress. It would be increasingly frustrating for you. Harmony must be brought to such a situation. And so, crosswalks and traffic lights were invented and put in place.
So we can see from that how very simply, from this instinctual nature that we all have, which is important to have because we need our instincts to survive. You know, otherwise humankind would have died off a long time ago. It's the very base starting point of the mind. And insects, as he said, also have it. But there's a pleasure-pain aspect to the instinctual side. We seek pleasure and we try to avoid pain. And Master gave just a very clear, simple example about if you want to cross the road, you want to cross the road, so you just want to cross the road. But somebody driving down the road want to drive down the road. So this conflict of what two people want comes and clashes when these two people's what they want to do actually opposes each other. So we create traffic lights. You know what? Ultimately, in the world, right, when we get beyond this instinctual, which we're going to move to, but instinctual way of thinking, and we start practicing true love, which means I'm thinking about other people, other people's happiness, we wouldn't need all these rules in society. We wouldn't need traffic lights. Nobody would go flying through an intersection because they wouldn't want to hurt somebody else, right? We have traffic lights because we have to stop people because people don't take enough care about each other. But a lot of our rules we wouldn't even need in society when we move into an enlightened society because people would be thinking about other people. Nobody wants to hurt another person. So everybody's actions will be based on not themselves, but looking after others as well. So this really brings us to something called the stages of love. You know, a teaching in happy science, which is one of the, or I believe one of the great teachings in happy science that I've never seen ever before, about how love develops through stages. And these are also different stages of enlightenment. And the first one is instinctual love. So Master's just been talking about instincts. Well, these stages, and we're going to talk about it shortly a bit more, but these stages of love actually also relate to the different places in the spirit world. You know, just before I said we have to believe that we have a soul, have to believe that we have there's a spiritual world beyond this world, and that we've left that world to come here. So that other world that we go to is a world with many different stages of love. And the key to that other world is that like attracts like. Similar wavelengths attract. So in this world, there's all these different, some people are practicing instinctual love, right? Some people are very materialistic and all they're doing is living in the pleasure-pain principle, trying to seek pleasure, trying to avoid pain. And that's all their life is all about. So that's a very low-level way of thinking, but that's an instinctual type of love. So in the Master Okawa teaches that in the next stage in the other world, there's something called fundamental love. And then the fundamental love means that I care about other people. I want to make other people happy. I enjoy making other people happy. Actually, he said before that if we in this world could all practice fundamental love, this earth would turn into heaven on earth. It's actually, this whole earth would become people who are just caring about each other, loving each other. So we just have to get out of that instinctual love. But he said beyond that, there's another love called a nurturing love. A nurturing love means not only loving other people, but making effort to learn something and do something in our life that can be beneficial to other people. There's a forgiving love, which is the love of the angels. The love of the angels is able to love everybody no matter what. Even loves the who we would see as being the worst criminals, the people who try to hurt us. Because with forgiving love, they recognize that everybody has this divine nature. Some people might have a lot of soot, a lot of bad issues and negativity that they've created around them. They might be we're talking about perspective of life at the beginning here, you know, how the perspective of our life makes a big difference to how we live. Some people might be growing up in a family where right from the very beginning, they got the wrong perspective of life. You know, their parents were alcoholics. They were beating them up. They were teaching them you don't need to work. You can rely on the government, or you should be stealing. Parents, I've seen programs where parents take their kids out, teach them how to steal, right? Take them into shops, get them to put things in their jacket and walk out of the shops. And the kids are like 4 or 5 years old. If a kid learns that at that age from their parents, how are they going to be any different unless somewhere along the line they come across a great teaching like happy science or some other great teaching that changes their way? So an angel can recognize that everybody is the way they are because of some reason. Nobody's like that way naturally. Our true nature is divine nature, it's Buddha nature. So an angel can recognize that in everybody and love everybody for that. The Master talks about existence as love. And these are great beings that all of us can try to learn from and aim towards becoming one day. People like Martin Luther King, people like Gandhi, you know, people like Nelson Mandela, you know, people who see things that are wrong in the world and they're willing to live their life to try to fix it. And the final love he talks about is Savior's love. And this is the great, great, great spirits like Jesus, Moses, Buddha, Confucius. And these ones, they come from a very, very high place to try to teach about God's love. At the very top, of course, there's God, but there's also the saviors underneath God. You know, this is a beautiful little picture which depicts it. I've shown this before, but just briefly to put this up on the screen, you know, this shows the dimensions, the third dimension at the bottom there of Earth, and in the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth dimension. So a minute ago, I was saying that the key to this understanding the spirit world and the different stages of love is that like wavelengths attract each other. So people who have got the thinking of instinctual love, people who are very materialistic, don't believe in the soul, they themselves have got that frequency of the fourth dimension of instinctual love. When they die, that's where they will be. And everybody in that fourth dimension will have that instinctual type of love. If a person, I mentioned all these dimensions. What I didn't mention was a place called hell. Well, hell's at the very bottom of the fourth dimension. So some people might think, oh, heaven and hell are 50-50. It's a big battle going on between God and the devil, and God might lose. Actually, hell itself is a tiny little slither that just exists at the bottom of the fourth dimension. It's a place where we're talking about love just now, and we're talking about instinctual love. Well, even a love that's more backward than instinctual love is love that takes. It's love that wants to take. It's love that's willing to hurt other people to get what I want. Yeah. So there's even the hell is a type of love, but it's a love in the opposite direction to what love is supposed to be. Love is a giving force. It's like the sunlight that just gives without ever asking for anything back. The taking love is take with ever wanting to give anything. Yeah. So all these different places in the spirit world are places that each one of us are going to go one day, and the place we will go to will completely and perfectly match our state of mind. So it's very simple to enter the fifth dimension. Actually, anybody who's a member of Happy Science should not be aiming for the fifth dimension, because just through understanding the truth, a person can enter the sixth dimension, the realm of light. Your understanding or knowledge of the truth is what's determined to being in the sixth dimension. So fifth dimension is good people. It's people who just love each other. They enjoy making other people happy. But sixth dimension is people who make an effort to learn the truth, to know the truth deeply, and try to spread that truth to other people. Yeah. So we're going to listen to Master Okawa shortly talk about something else, because he's talking about the mind, and today it's about understanding this mind. He's taught us about aspects of the mind. Now, in the aspects of the mind, he talks about essentially we've got four key aspects of our mind. We have emotion, we have reasoning, we have intellect, and we have will. So the emotion, of course, we know what the emotions are, but there's delight, anger, pain, and pleasure. These are the four main emotions that we have. So we try to get delight and we try to get pleasure, but we try to get away from anger and pain. But these are the four main emotions that we feel. And then there's reasoning, but this could also be called logic. So reasoning means you can hear something and think about something and reason it out with somebody. Intellect is the ability to understand things. So it's about a cleverness. We can study things and intellectually become bright. And then there's willpower. Willpower means to actually our strength to do something, to have an idea and to move in that direction and not give up. Say, for instance, giving up smoking cigarettes requires willpower. Your intellect could tell you it's wrong, and your reasoning will tell you it's wrong, but your willpower is required to be able to give up smoking. So these are the four key points, but this is when we are just living with the normal mind in this world. And this is a mind that's often really also to do with instinctual type thinking. There's something missing. And this is the key thing for us lifting and elevating the world. The next point is the point that actually, as people realize this is an aspect of themselves that they haven't discovered, will change the world. And it's this. It's spiritual understanding. Spiritual understanding is the chance to realize that there's something more than just my emotions, my reasoning, my intellect, and my will. Because as we get spiritual understanding, we can reflect on these things. If we don't have spiritual understanding, we just think, you hear somebody say, oh, he made me angry. He made me angry, or she made me angry. That means you're being controlled by somebody else. You're not really recognizing. With spiritual understanding, you look from outside of yourself and you look to how a situation happened and how you felt. So you actually see the feeling as a feeling and see it as a feeling that you yourself can control, or a thought that you can control. Some people think, well, thoughts just come to me. I can't help it. But once we get spiritual understanding, we realize there's something that's ourself that can look at those thoughts and see those thoughts and decide if that's a good thought or a bad thought. Where's that part? Who's that part that can actually judge whether, oh, that's a bad feeling, or that's a bad thought, oh, that's a good thought, that's a good feeling? Who decides that? This is our true self. This is the part of ourself that we can gain through spiritual understanding. Yeah. So actually, it was really interesting at the Mind Body Spirit show we were just at. There was a lady who came to us, stand, really nice lady, and she was really out to help people. I feel like she could easily be from the sixth dimension, because she's a psychologist. So she studied hard, she's worked hard, and she's doing her job with a real true intent of helping people. So this is the sort of person that can be easily in the sixth dimension. And I asked her what she did. She says, oh, I do EU. I'm working with EU. I said, what's EU? She said, emotional understanding. I said, oh, okay, emotional understanding. And I thought that was really great. So she's talking about, people getting to understand their emotions and work through their emotions and their psychology. I thought, well, that's really great. She said, well, what do you do? And I suddenly thought, oh, I do SU. She said, what's SU? I said, it's spiritual understanding. So it's another thing. Spiritual understanding is something that we can actually have. So actually another word for spiritual understanding is enlightenment. Spiritual understanding is knowing I'm a spiritual being, knowing the other world exists, and then starting to deeply, deeply understand that. But I thought these words that Master gave us about spiritual understanding was just another perspective of understanding what is enlightenment. Because I think when we hear the word enlightenment, it's got very Buddhist undertones, and sometimes it seems very mystical and hard to understand. Oh, enlightenment, Buddha attained enlightenment. But enlightenment, there is, of course, there's the great enlightenment the Buddha had, where he actually experienced being one with the universe and realized we are all one with the universe, and that every human being has the potential to expand their mind out to become one with everything. In the same regards, we can actually diminish our mind down to a mustard seed, but we can expand our mind out to the universe. So the Buddha had that experience. We may not have that experience, but spiritual understanding means that we can understand that possibility and potential is there, and we can aim to deepen it so we can start to expand our mind and feel it little by little. So I kind of like to play another excerpt from Master here, and he's talking about explaining about spiritual understanding.
Spiritual understanding will never come out just by studying to have an encyclopedic knowledge of the teachings or have a brain like a smartphone. Spiritual understanding will never come out just by memorizing what is written in which book. In order to cultivate your spiritual understanding, thinking quietly in seclusion is indispensable. You must set aside time for you to look within your mind. What is spiritual understanding? Humans are made to have to protect their bodily lives in this world. They have to be able to protect themselves from dangers. Humans, animals, and plants are made to choose what will allow them to live more comfortably. Look at how plants will turn their flowers towards the sun. Sunflowers move all day to tilt their face to the sun. This is how they are made to be. But when humans come in contact with spiritual understanding for the first time ever, they can liberate themselves from this third-dimensional world. How do you become liberated? It is to realize that everything that originates from the physical body and comes from it is not you. The thoughts you think with your head is not you. To think that your neural behaviors is you is a mistake. What does this all mean? As I explained before, when your life is centered around your emotions, you will encounter conflict with others because they too have their emotions of delight, anger, sorrow, and pain. These collisions that arise in the process of living together will create dents, which then produce suffering. You will need time to think about how to remove these dents, or if it needs to be corrected, how to direct it to a better direction. To become aware of this leads you to discover spiritual understanding. When you look at things from the world beyond this one, when we transcend the physical life, then you will be able to see how you look like, how others look like, how people as a group look like, how the country looks like, and where our world is headed. Therefore, it becomes important to wake up to the soul that exists inside your body and to see if you are living in the way you should be living, which is to fulfill the original goal of polishing your soul and elevating it. The first basic task for that is to remove the smog from your mind. Self-reflection is the tool for removing the fog that is clouding up the windows of your mind. Your mind has accumulated a lot of dust and grime while living in this world. Removing this dust and grime will purify your mind and make it more transparent. This is the effort of aligning your vibrations to that of the finer vibrations of heaven.
精妙な波動と同通するような努力をしてくる。それからこ
The
の次に言える
second
ように
is
言え
to
ば
act
やっぱり
altruistically.
人間は自分自身の
Humans
ため
can't
に生き
help
たい自己
but want
実
to
現
live for
とか
themselves,
自分
to
の利益にな
realize
る
their
こと
own desires,
自己保
to
存
do what
自分
benefits
が
them, to protect themselves, to want to take somebody else's lunch to satisfy their empty stomach when we had forgotten to bring our own.
気持ちを持っている
Humans can be
自
like
然体
that
ではそうなるところ
unless
を
taught otherwise. So we must control our desires and think about others. Think about doing something for others, and to do so even if they don't know that we are doing it. By doing so, you thereby build virtue. The desire to self-reflect in order to remove the dust and grime on your mind is not something that will come straight out of your instinct.
する行為やあるいは自分の本能から見れば
To be altruistic is to think if your actions are not just making you happy, but bringing happiness to others, to think about what result it might bring. It is to make other people's sorrow your sorrow, to feel other people's pain as your pain. It is to experience the sense of oneness with yourself and others, to have that arise within you, and to find yourself desiring to be of help to others. So there are two ways to develop spiritual understanding. One is to clear the clouds of smog from your mind through self-reflection and increase the transparency of your mind. The other can also be said to be a form of self-reflection, but it is to think about acting altruistically. It is to think, have I been thinking about myself too much? Have I thought enough about others? When you begin to reflect on yourself from the mindset of benefiting others, it will lead you to gaze at yourself from the perspective of your higher self, the self that exists outside of your physical body, the self that exists in a much higher place. In other words, you will see yourself through the eyes of your guardian spirit or your guiding spirit, or to take it further, the eyes of angels, bodhisattvas, Nyarais or tathagatas, of God or of Buddha. This effort to reflect the way you live in the eyes of your higher self must be made. Self-reflection must be practiced in order to remove the discord that arises when people live together, or the evil that is caused when one person's freedom collides with another's. The mind needs to be made clear and transparent so that it can connect with heaven and heaven's light, or spiritual light, can shine into the soul. When you see yourself and others as existences all created by God and become someone who is always thinking about how to create a world where everyone can coexist with each other, then your spiritual understanding will become stronger. School subjects do not go as far as to touch upon spiritual understanding. But when you encounter religion and your spiritual understanding grows stronger, when you work on cultivating your character and improving yourself, you will become someone who is always thinking about what you can do for others and for the world. You will not be a pretender or a hypocrite or do so out of pride or to sell your name. You will be someone who thinks, how can I use myself fully for the sake of others? When you get to this stage, your soul will be sublimed and raised to a higher state of being. In accordance with the law of same wavelengths attraction, you will begin to connect with spirits in heaven that share the same state of mind as yours. But when your heart is pitch black with soot and you are thinking more and more about yourself, then your soul will become heavier and sink.
Such a clear, straight explanation and understanding about, the importance of spiritual understanding. And you think, imagine if this was taught to kids from a young age. I mean, today's thing is all about bringing peace on earth. And this very simple teaching is what's required. The Master said there's two ways. There's two ways of practicing spiritual understanding. He said, first of all, self-reflect to remove the clouds of smog that have accumulated on your mind, so your mind becomes transparent. So while we're living in this world, and it's just natural because we learned about instinctual thinking, preservation of the self, which is just a very natural human thing. But because we start with that, and we think about ourselves so much, we start to build up these clouds around our spiritual self. They're the clouds of negativity, clouds of worry, clouds of fear, clouds of thinking about myself. And through this, we start to actually feel unhappy. And it's hard for the light of heaven to come into our heart. Just as on a sunny day, we walk outside, we feel the sunlight. But on another day, when it's cloudy, we go out, we can't feel the sunlight. The clouds block the sun. Well, our clouds of thought, about the me-orientated thought, that actually blocks the thought from heaven. You know, Jesus once said, those who have will receive more, and those who don't have will receive less. And he was talking about this way of thinking. Those who have mind that's in tune with God will receive more of God's light. Those that have less of their way of thinking will receive less. It's the law of cause and effect. So there's every benefit in the world to practicing this. See, it can sound like, because the second one Master talks about was about practicing altruism. He said, think about acting altruistically and check you have not been thinking about yourself too much. Now, doesn't that sound like, oh, I'm going to have to give up stuff. I'm not going to be able to think about myself. I have to think about other people more. Here's the funny thing about that, is that the more we think about other people and the less we think about ourselves, the happier we become. You know, this is the irony. And it's the truth that people need to learn. And once they practice it, they realize it's true. The more they think about other people and bring happiness to other people, it naturally makes them happy. And it's a pure happiness. If I bring happiness to another person and I see them become happy and I feel happy, it's a pure happiness, because when I reflect on it, oh, I feel happier. But if I do something to make myself happy, and even if it's taking from another person and I think I feel happy, if I reflect on myself, I don't really feel happy. I think, oh, but I hurt that other person. But you got more. You've got more now, Steve. Yeah, but you hurt that other person. There's always a feeling of guilt because we have the true self. The true self contains a conscience. The conscience is part of God. So it sees things as they really are. And it really realizes at the depths of ourself, we're one with others. So if I hurt another, I hurt myself. So that's why we can never really feel happy if we're taking from others to try to bring happiness to ourselves. But since ultimately we are all one, if I bring happiness to another, I really do bring it to myself. But my conscience is really clear. My conscience is feel happy because it knows that actually I did something out of pure love. Yeah. So these 2 points, self-reflect and remove the soot, and to think, am I acting altruistically? These are the 2 points Master made about how to discover your higher self, or how to practice spiritual understanding. So to take this a step further, so once we have a discovery of our higher self, our next step naturally would be development of our higher self. So once we discover inside, yeah, I do have this self, this nature that does enjoy bringing happiness to other people. I do feel good as I clear my mind and polish my mind. So in Happy Science, we practice something called exploration of the right mind. Master's been talking about the mind today and how, yeah, we have a body, we have a soul, but the core of ourself is our mind. And the exploration of the mind, right mind, means looking within, finding our divine nature. So in Happy Science, to explore the right mind, we use something called the fourfold path, the principles of happiness, which are essentially love, wisdom, self-reflection, and progress. So people who have studied Happy Science have all seen this path. But this is like in Buddha's time, 2,500 years ago, he taught the Eightfold Path, which was the way to human perfection. It's sort of a similar idea. It's about how to refine yourself using the Eightfold Path. And, you know, it's right seeing, right thought, right speech, right action, right living, right effort, right will, right meditation. Each one of these is a higher step closer towards refining the true self. But Master, being the Buddha of our time, of course, created a new path for human beings based on our current age. And this is such a beautiful path. It does actually contain the Eightfold Path, because people can, within the self-reflection, practice the Eightfold Path that was taught in Buddhism, right? They can check in self-reflection that right seeing. Did I see the world correctly? Do I see myself correctly? Do I see myself as a spiritual being making efforts to develop myself, right? Right seeing, right thought. Did I think correctly? You know, did I avoid greed, anger, and foolishness? We can look within our mind to check our thinking's right. So right think, right thought, right speech. Yeah, what did I say today? Did I hurt anyone? Did I say positive words? Did I say honest words? So we can, within self-reflection, practice the Eightfold Path of Buddha. So it's not like it's something that's different from Buddhism from 2,500 years ago. But because of our modern current civilization, we needed a new teaching. And the first stage here is love. You know, Because that's one of the things, the biggest problems in the world today is people misunderstand love. They think love is something you get from other people. People are yearning love from others, and that's what's creating the suffering. Instead, people need to learn, oh no, the essence of love is giving. The moment you give love, you experience love. God is love. The universe is full of love. All you have to do to experience love is give love. But if you're trying to take love, you'll never experience it. Yeah. Wisdom is to know the truth. Wisdom means just what we're talking about. Actually, it's spiritual understanding is wisdom. I'm a spiritual being. This world's a temporary world. I've come here as a school to train my soul. Nothing really matters. I'm going to die and go back to the other world. All I can take with me is my mind. This is wisdom, to know this stuff. And the final step there of progress means, every day trying to develop myself, which Master was talking about through self-reflection, getting rid of any negativity in the mind, or becoming altruistic, trying to help other people more and develop the world. Okay, so based on this, and you know what Master said earlier on, you probably heard him say, just by reading books, you're never going to get spiritual understanding. You can read as many of my books as you like, but you'll never get spiritual understanding. The only way to get spiritual understanding is to go within, to have quiet time, look within your mind. So now's our time for some spiritual understanding. Because I'd like to play now for all of us. It's a beautiful contemplation on the fourfold path. So this is a talk from Master that he gave, and talking about what is happy science, and he's talking about the fourfold path and love, wisdom, self-reflection, and progress, and what each one means. So we can listen to his words and feel the vibration, and he's speaking in English in this one. So thank you, Master. We're so happy to receive English. And then the words will be quite short, and then there's some just nice music to be able to think about that and contemplate on that and go within ourselves. So this will last about 15 minutes, so please get comfortable and enjoy the contemplation.
Most important thing is love. I also said often. Love is to believe in other people. Other peoples also have Buddha nature, so we can love each other. If other peoples are sons of Satans, we cannot love them, but they are not. They are children of God or children of Buddha. So we must love each other. It's the first mission. Love is practice. Don't forget that. Do something. Love is not thought or idea. Love is practice. Do something good to other peoples. Secondly, we must learn wisdom. Wisdom means deep knowledge. It includes spiritual knowledge. We live in this world, but when we pass away, we move to another world, and there we live as a soul and live real life. And then next we reborn and come this world again and live as a human being. So wisdom includes Buddha truth. It means spiritual truth in it. Next is self-reflection. For example, you need silence, maybe 15 minutes or so every day, and during that time you think about your life of the day from the morning to the midnight, and look into your inside, your mind, and think about your mind is right or wrong, according to the Buddha truth or textbook. We have a lot of methods, ways to the enlightenment. Enlightenment means to be awakened. It means when your mother come to your room, wake up. You say so, same meaning, but it's in real meaning, in spiritual meaning. So don't think too difficult to get enlightenment. It is to wake up your mind, wake up your heart, and open your eyes, your real eyes. It's enlightenment. And next, I told progress. It is a way to succeed. In this context, you must learn invincible thinking. It means anytime, in any case, in everywhere, you must win or you must get success. You shall make a lot of mistakes from now on. So at that time, you need invincible thinking. It's a bounce back ability. It means rebound, or get power again, or you need another power at the time. When you decide or make up your mind, you are loser, it's the end. But if you think you can continue to fight, you can stand up again and fight again. It's bounce back ability. It's a half part of invincible thinking. And another half is when you succeed and get a lot of points and praised from another people. At the time, please keep your mind peacefully and make efforts every day. Don't be proud of you so much, and every day, every year, make efforts and don't to become tengu. Okay, it's another part of invincible thinking. If you look to size of invincible thinking, you can win and win and win every year. In short, I told you fourfold path to the truth, but in addition to that, I ask you that you must have braveness. Be brave. Don't hesitate to act or to practice good things. Be brave. Braveness is a key to the success. Don't hesitate to tell the truth. Don't hesitate to confess what you're thinking about, and choose the right way in every chance, every day. Righteousness is akin to faith. So righteousness is almost the heart of God or Buddha. Be brave. It's very important.
Yeah, so a nice contemplation. And Master finished with the idea about being brave, do good things. And of course, to create peace, bring peace to earth, it is going to take courage and bravery to tell people the truth. But that's our job, that's our mission. That's how we change the world. When we see something wrong, we speak out. We say, what we believe to be right. There is this month we had this beautiful monthly message came out called "Will Humans Be Replaced by AI?" I really enjoyed giving these out at the Mind, Body, Spirit show because it was very relevant to today's world. But on the inside page, every month there was a guide for the mind. And this one, I'll bring it up, was called Reversing Good and Evil. And this is really where we're at in the world today. To bring peace to the world, we have to reverse good and evil. We have to reverse the evil and bring out the good in the world. And we're nearly finished today, and pretty shortly I'm going to summarize just on the points today. But this really is the only way for us to create the world we want to live in, is these teachings. Very simple about who we are, where we're from, the mission of our life, our true nature, and the true essence of happiness that comes when we give love into the world and we stop being people who act instinctively, but become people who live based on our true nature, our divine nature. That when people know who they are and really where the true happiness comes from, that is really the only way. But it's the secure way, because it's the true way. And when people know it and they practice it and they experience it, it's not a pretend thing, it's a real thing. And as it comes alive, and the kids are taught from a young age how to discipline their mind, how to think about the other kids, how much fun it feels to make Johnny, to make Mary happy, how nice it feels to share what you've got with other people. When the kids actually learn that from a young age, naturally it will fill our societies. But it has to start somewhere. And it starts here with us and with happy science. So this reversing good from evil, reversing good and evil, I'd just like to briefly read it. Master said, "This world is a very strange place. When you voice the right ideas to improve society, you can be ignored or criticized. In contrast, harmful ideas can sometimes take over the world. You can shrug it off and just say, the world is unfair. But consider this. While it is easy to swim down the river, it is difficult to swim up it. While it is easy to go downhill, it is difficult to go up even on a bicycle. While it is easy to enter a wide gate, it is difficult to enter a straight gate. Choosing the path to realize goodness is extremely difficult in this world. It is as difficult as going against the gravity of this earthly world that is constantly at work. All things will naturally fall. But look, a bird in the sky has wings. An insect flying in midair also has wings. So humans, I tell you, continue to seek truth, goodness, and beauty. Continue to explore the fourfold path. These will be your wings." That's just so beautiful. It just explains the reality of where it is. It's very tough. In this world, it's very tough. Just as there's gravity, the nature of humans living with instinctual tendency will always be to think of themselves. People always think of themselves. That is the gravity. That is the natural nature of people as soon as we're born into this world. And if things are just left without an understanding of the spiritual understanding that we spoke about, teaching who we really are, teaching the purpose of your life is to overcome that instinctual nature. That's actually the soul training in this world. The whole having this body, the challenge of overcoming the desire of self-preservation and becoming something greater that goes beyond the self-preservation, that becomes a being that actually thinks of others more than ourselves. That is our soul training. That's so hard to do. It's a real challenge to do because always, every moment, there's always the chance of being hungry. There's always the chance of being without, the fear of losing something. So while that is there, we naturally have it. It's in us, but God gave us this whole life, this whole body, this whole world for this challenge. So the soul could really discover what it really is and be able to overcome the challenge that we have of not to live instinctively, but to live spiritually. Yeah. So just to really sum it up today, this bringing peace to earth. The real points today is first we have to have right faith or the right perspective of life. We are spiritual beings. This world's a training ground for our soul. There is a spirit world, there is a God. Everybody has a soul. This is the real starting point. Secondly, exploration of the right mind. It's to discover the true self, the divine nature, and to aim to bring it out. And we do that through the fourfold path, the principles of happiness, love, wisdom, self-reflection, and progress. We can practice self-reflection and altruism. How was I living today? Was I living in accordance with the truth? Was I living my instinctual self, or was I living in my spiritual self? Am I doing things for other people? Am I trying to do something to help other people? And this way we develop ourselves, we become happier and happier, we develop the world. And when we leave this, we take with us back to the other world. It's all we can take back with us to the other world. Yeah. So I'd just like to say thank you all very much for coming today. Let's spread the word. You know, a couple of books from today that I would really advise, of course, The Laws of Happiness. This is a very beautiful book. So if you want a simple book to be able to give people about these teachings, The Laws of Happiness, it teaches about love, wisdom, self-reflection, and progress. And of course, The Laws of the Sun, which will become the scripture that guides the earth in the future of the book, because it talks about the whole of creation. But so it depends on the person. You know, if you feel like somebody is at a starting point, maybe The Laws of Happiness is a great book to give them. If you feel like someone has a deep understanding and they really want to know the deepest truth, The Laws of the Sun is the book to give them. Yeah. But read the books, study the books. About, as Master said, we need to spend time going inside our mind and discovering this true self, the self that actually can see ourselves from afar. Okay. Thank you all very, very much.